Hey guys, KPD here with my Crit Earthquake build. This is my first custom build, and I just wanted to make this video to go along with the build guide on the forums, just to kind of give you a quick video overview of how I designed this character and kind of what I wanted from it. And yeah. So anyhow, this is a softcore character, pretty much only. You probably could get away with this on hardcore, but it's a little squishy, especially in the early stages of the build. Because I'm more focused on damage versus life. So yeah, anyhow, so to talk about the build, let's talk about the gear. The main things that this build, I would say, are required to do this build is a Gemini's Era, I hope I'm saying that right, staff. This staff gives so much benefit to this build, including a pretty darn good critical strike chance, decent flat fizz rolls on it, and more importantly, the power charge and power charge generation, which is extremely nice for this build to get us crit capped, which was one of the main things that when I was designing this build, I want to be as close to crit capped as possible, and I was extremely happy with the results that I got from it. Inside my staff here, I have a 5-link Vaal Ground Slam build. Vaal Ground Slam is a kind of a bonus to this build. It's not really necessary. I just enjoy it it helps clear out packs, big packs as you're moving along through mapping, and also you're opening Shawn boxes. It allows you a big burst of quick damage that just benefits the build in terms of clear speed. In there I have multi-strike with Vaal Ground Slam, added fire, melee physical damage, and increased AoE. In the 6th socket, I have Vaal Lightning Trap, which I think is an amazing, highly underrated in my opinion, skill gem. I throw this down when I'm fighting a boss. For instance, like during the theory fight, all 3 split phases, I drop down 3 traps, and it just makes that just go just super smooth. The second part of the build that I feel is or item in the build that I feel is necessary is the Abyssus helmet. Now this helmet gives amazing amount of defense or offense, but with the drawback of having almost no defenses on it. It being the 40 to 60 flat fizz is just incredible for boosting your DPS. The crit multi is just absolutely fantastic. Since we're already going to be crit capped, we really don't need to worry about critical strike chance. We just want to buff when that crit hits, that it hits hard and just like one-shots everything. The major drawback to this build this item is the fact that it has the increased physical damage taken. I got this one as the lowest roll is 40, and I highly recommend getting it as low as possible and trying to get the highest amount of crit multi with the lowest amount of increased physical damage taken. The armor and attributes rolls on it are not really a big thing. Attributes are nice, get as high as you can get for what you can afford, but again, that's like a secondary afterthought. And the armor is kind of more or less a non-issue because as you'll see later. So the main other core item to this build is the lightning coil, just for the fact that the 30% of physical damage taken as lightning damage helps offset the drawbacks of the Abyssus. In my 6-link lightning coil, I have Earthquake with less duration, of course, melee physical damage, increased AoE, which I then swap out Conk Effect for when doing boss fights. And again, this is most of the time in a boss fight, such as the Theory and the 3, the Vaal bosses in the trio, when it's like I can prepare for a big fight. But for most bosses and mapping and everything else, it's like I don't even take the time to swap it out because I just annihilate everything. Weapon elemental damage and added fire damage. I tried physical to lightning and a few other things and just found that these 2 combos were the best for the 5 and 6 link. If you're running with a 5-link lightning coil, I would say throw in added fire, and weapon elemental damage is probably the second, like what I would throw in for a 6-link, and just run with added fire damage for a 5-link. Other than that, the rest I have is just some rare rings and amulets, boots, basically focusing on evasion, life, resist, You know, movement speed is a nice bonus. You know, none of this gear is like really super top tier gear. And if you really want to go all out with this build, you could definitely improve on this. I definitely got the armor evasion boots here for the faster attack, leap slam, fortify, and my summon ice golem, just to make chromatic a little bit easier on me. Definitely summon ice golem is what we use, and as you'll see, like when I showed my DPS, like this is with not fully leveled gems and not with like truly end game awesome gear. This is just like you know, somewhat affordable. I mean, the most expensive thing on this build is probably the staff and the lightning coil, which I bought for cheap and then linked. So that's, you know, definitely. I mean, I think total I spent maybe 2 exalted in terms of like purchasing items, and then, you know, I got pretty lucky with my 6-link coil and 5-link Hegemony's staff. Again, I would recommend only a 5-link for the staff because I like this extra socket here for Vaal lightning trap. I could put it here if for some reason I 6-linked the staff, but it's neither here nor there. On the amulet and rings, I focused on intelligence, just because this build is mainly armor evasions or strength dexterity. So intelligence is just nice to have there to pad out your stats. The Abyssus actually definitely helps with the attribute requirements. Life, evasion rating, resistance, and I threw on critical strike chance as a suffix because at the time I could cap out my resist without needing to roll a suffix on this amulet. Accuracy is another high thing. Since we are crit based, we don't hit resolute technique, and therefore both of the initial hit and the aftershock have a chance to miss, so they both require accuracy, which is something that this build can definitely stack upon more. And if I had the desire and more money, I would spend on an amulet that had accuracy. The rings, again, nothing special here, just enough to pad out my resist, added flat fizz. I mean, this ring could definitely use an improvement. This ring here is actually pretty nice. I got life, cold resist, a really good accuracy roll, and an elemental damage weapon. I got this ring for like 5 chaos. It was, I don't think the guy knew what he was doing. It was a pretty good deal. And then for belt, rustic sash for the increased physical damage, a nice high life roll, fire, and then lightning resistance, and 14% increased elemental damage. With just a roll onto it. Again, with this, I get the minus 60 lightning resistance from the lightning coil, so trying to stack on lightning resist wherever I can is a big perk. But we'll talk about the fact that I run Purity of Lightning to not only cap out my lightning resist, but over cap it, so that way it buffs the amount of physical damage that is reduced when I get hit by it. My gloves, again, accuracy, life, mana resist, and then I rolled on 0.37% of physical damage leached with mana because this build really doesn't rely on mana regen, more so as just the fact that I leech. I hit so hard that I leech back any mana that I spend on our prick itself, which is a relatively low 23 mana cost, and I'm not really attacking super fast. So leeching back that mana, that's more than enough. Before I got these gloves, I just had it on a jewel. It just the physical damage leached this mana, so now it's, you know, now it's just on my gloves, and I can spec more damage onto my jewels. If I was to get better gloves, I would also like to have a flat fizz roll on it. Would have been extremely nice to get rid of this damage leeches mana, go flat fizz. You do not need attack speed, and you don't really want attack speed in your gloves. And thankfully I don't need crit from either Malic Arrows or the Shadows and Dust. So yeah, this is kind of the overview of my items in here. I just have casting damage taken, and we'll call Warlord's Mark for the extra leech. When I do get hit, it buffs the amount that I leech, as well as when I hit a reflect mob, it will buff the leech I get from that, and then increase duration. Here I have Rallying Cry. I honestly don't really use it all that much. It's just a nice little boost to DPS and mana. Again, not a necessarily important gem. Most of the time I don't even pop it just because I don't really even need to. And I run Hatred and Period of Lightning, which eats up almost my entire mana pool. Other than that, for Flask, I just have a Remove Bleeding Life Recovery Flask for, A, to remove bleeding, and B, to help run Desecrated Ground maps and Chaos damage stuff, just to kind of pull in my life slowly, and rather than an instant Flask, which, will pop away. Because I leech life instantaneously with Vaal Pact, I don't need an instant life flask. I also use a Series Promise. I highly recommend 20 quality in this. I just haven't done it yet. For the 2% Chaos damage leeches life is extremely nice. And like with Reflect, it's just really good to have a ton of leech when you need it, because it'll allow you to absorb all that damage you're going to be taking back as life instantaneously. And then you gain 25% of physical damage as extra chaos damage, and elemental damage as extra chaos damage, in which we do quite a bit of both physical and elemental damage. Just a basic Quicksilver Flask, obviously this can be upgraded. A Taste of Hate is another pretty core item to this build, in my opinion. There's not only the physical DPS boost that it gives you, but also the fact of the 20% physical damage taken as cold damage. So basically, the nice thing about this is with the Abyssus giving us increased physical damage we take, we offset it by using both the Lightning Coil, 30% there, and 20% from the Taste of Hate. So it just definitely helps, A, with Reflect, and then also just general mapping and endgame with enemies that hit hard that with the Abyssus would just annihilate you. And then a Topaz Flask to remove freeze, and as well as to give us an added buff when we go up against a physical Reflect, or even elemental Reflect, to be honest. It gives us that much more damage reduction, because it'll boost the effect of our Lightning Quill by overcapping us even more. So just with that, let's look at our stats real quick. Right now I only have a Mulling level 87, and I have 4,500 life, so definitely at this point I'm done speccing into damage, and at this point, subsequent levels I would just spec into life, as we'll see in a little bit. But as of now I only have 4,500, which is fine. It's not ideal, but for softcore it's pretty good. And sitting in the go to it real quick. Sitting in my hideout, I have a 6% chance to hit with my Ice Golem activated, and I have 104,000, almost 105,000 DPS with a 72% chance to crit and a 584 crit multi. So yeah, at this point, like, the thing I love is the 72% crit chance. It's fantastic because it's a nice base crit, because this, the chance to gain power charges is only when you knock back enemies, and you only knock back enemies when you crit with this build. So if you want to get crit capped quickly, you're going to want to be critting to begin with, and therefore that would generate your power charges for you. Defensively, I have almost no armor. I have, 19% chance to evade attacks, so not fantastic, but it's okay. 30% chance to dodge attacks from the acrobatics node, and then I have 76 fire, 75 cold, and 78 lightning. This will eventually get to 79 when I level up my period of lightning. I think one more time it'll go up to 79. No chaos resistance, which is definitely something I would love to see improved on this build, is get some on gear, and if I could kind of work it out in the passive tree, picking up Purity of Flesh, I believe it's called, to get some more chaos resistance. Let's see here. So let's look at the passive tree real quick. I chose Scion for this build because I think I just wanted to be able to span the tree and get a lot from both crit and melee physical damage, and the Assassin Scion Ascendancy class. So let's look here first at the ascendancies. I go Berserker for the life leech, as well as the more damage multiplier. The 25% increased attack speed from taking a savage hit is okay, but honestly, like, attack speed is not something that you really want to buff too much on an Earthquake build because it's kind of diminishing returns. But the life leech and the more damage are definitely noticeable and fantastic for this build. The 5% increased damage taken is, again, a drawback because we're already at 40% increased physical damage taken from the abysses. It's just kind of like, it's like another like, oh, that's kind of a bummer, but you know what, we hit so hard and we have enough life that it was definitely worth the payoff. And then I also pick up the Assassin because it gives us two benefits of having some intelligence and dexterity built into the ascendancy tree, as well as giving us that base crit strike chance and the extra crit multi against enemies that are on full life, and the 10% chance to gain a power charge hitting enemies that are on full life is extremely nice to get those initial power charges going. Once you have power charges up, as long as you're fighting enemies, you'll never run out because it's the staff will give you that. So with this, I chose, just kind of give you a quick overview, just attack speed, jewel sockets. I highly focus on jewel sockets. Again, attack speed is not something we want, but it was a necessary evil to get to where we need to go. Picking up crit, picking up Vaal pack. I picked up Vaal pack fairly early, around like level 60 when I transitioned. Actually, even before that, I leveled as a blade vortexer because I think that skill is super OP in the first, cruel and normal difficulty. As you go into Merciless, it starts to fall off, especially as you're speccing into like melee physical damage nodes and stuff like that. And then so Vaal pack, life, I love going up into the shadow area because of all this physical damage and crit strike chance, more attack damage, crit strike chance, going over here to picking up Blood Drinker for the amazing life and extra life leech. And then as well as down here, I chose to pick up acrobatics and go more evasion and dodge chance based for this build rather than armor. I feel like armor is extremely a lackluster defense in this game. I could be wrong about that, but it's just kind of the way that I choose to run builds. And then also the benefit of getting Heartseeker here for all this delicious crit and crit multi, and an extra jewel socket here. With that, then I also come out here and hit this entire Scion life wheel. Over here, again, jewel sockets, going over to some Vowling for all the crit and crit multi. Barbarism for the great life resistances, help pad out resistances on gear. Helps to be a little bit lazier with buying nicer gear, and as well as the maximum fire resist is nice, especially during the Aziri fight. This is a huge smashing strike. This is a very potent, absolute must to build when you go Earthquake, especially once you get crit and you're using the staff, because of the endurance charge gain on the melee critical strike, which we're critting all the time. So it helps keep up endurance charges, which pads out, that initial hit that we get from the physical damage, but also increases the duration of our Mortal Call. Devotion, heading up through here, again, jewel sockets. Elementalist is a nice little add to our all elemental resistances. And also increases our elemental damage, which we actually do quite a bit of because of weapon elemental damage. This beautiful AoE nodes here, Retribution, Life, and then probably the most important points in the tree. And I picked these up, like I hit this like right as I was getting to 68 and was going to transition into the staff, is Serpent Stance, which is a ton of crit strike and crit multi, and the most important is Blunt Trauma, which gives us our knockback on critical strike, which syncs with our staff super well because we gain power charges when we knock enemies back. So, and again, the just jewel sockets, right now I'm level 87, I believe, yeah, 87. So at this point, if I was to go I spec characters out to like level 90, 91 at the most, because past that, it's just like, it takes way more determination than I have to level up a character higher. So with another 3 or 4 points, I would just pick up life there, life there. If I was really hungry, I could come down here and pick up herbalism for that 20% increased life plus the life recovery from flask, which in my opinion is not that important. So I would honestly, if I was gonna go to 91, I would pick up life there, and then try to spec into another jewel socket there, giving some more resist and that you don't need, but you know, allowing you to get an extra jewel socket, which is just ridiculously strong. So when I first picked up this build, I was thinking about going into the duelist area and like heading down through here and picking up all these nodes and going like, and then I realized that there's just a ton of life regen, and I'm going Vaal pack, so it was completely wasted. There was no critical strike chance down here really. It's just a lot of flat physical damage and a couple other good, like, you know, life nodes. But it just didn't seem like to fit the build that I wanted to do, which was just to get a ton of life, a ton of crit, and a ton of crit multi and hit hard. And so I just decided to like forego specking into here and just going into more specking on jewel sockets, which I feel are extremely stronger because you can spend a little money and get some really good jewels to pad out your build. Anyhow, last but not least, I think that kind of explains everything. I'm going to really quickly run just a quick overview of the Springs map just to kind of show you how the build plays. Some of the cons to this build are Fizz Reflect is an issue. Most of the time, as long as you get your flats up, you won't kill yourself. But from time to time, if you're not popping your flats, you can one-shot yourself. LA Reflect, pretty much the same way, but less intense. LA Reflect maps are doable, I have found, but extremely sketchy. Like, you know, expect to die, so don't do it with, you know, only do it when you just leveled up and you really want to do it for the challenge of it. So there we go, Fizz Reflect, not a problem. The other nice part about acrobatics is the fact that sometimes I can completely forego the negative effects of reflect, because my character will actually dodge that reflective damage. So that's, again, that's, you know, a random chance, so I wouldn't bank on that, and therefore you shouldn't, yeah, like I said, you shouldn't bank on that, therefore, because it's gonna kill yourself. So as you can see, like, you know, I take some damage, so when I hit, it's just like, boom, instantly leaps back. So, I mean, the amount of leech on this character is just ridiculous, because the amount of damage that I do is astronomical. So right now, making sure your ice volume is always up is extremely important, because it gives a huge buff to your accuracy. And this is why we use all ground plane. Pack cleared. So with all my charges up, without flash, I'm sitting at 130,000 damage, which is pretty darn impressive. And again, that's counted as the initial hit that you do with Earthquake, and then the aftershock is what does 77% more damage, which is just a ridiculous amount of damage. So if I have all my charges up and then I pop my flash, I'm sitting at 187,000 damage. That's with increased air effectiveness and not having like any quality really on most of my gens. So definitely some room to almost hit 200k with increased daily. And you know, if I upgraded tools or some of my rings and whatnot, I got more flat fizz on gear. Oh, by the way, D-Gen, which is chaos damage, less than zombies and other things, it's kind of almost as physical damage or damage over time, and it hurts the build. Like, vulnerability with those kind of enemies is brutal. So here we go into the boss. Like, you could pop that. So I would just throw down my ice trap, boom, boom, done. Like 2 or 3 shots. And again, the nature of Earthquake that I find is that it kind of makes you attack slower, because you just like, you're like, oh, I can only attack so fast, and you know, the aftershock has a delay on it, so there's only so much you can do with it. But I still find the initial attack, the hit that you first do, does a ton of damage, so don't be afraid to just sit there and spam it, even though your Earthquake itself is not going, your aftershock's not going off all the time, you're still doing a ton of damage. So yeah, other things to note about this build, just popping flash. Again, another con is the fact that you don't have access to Whirling Blades, so your only movement skill is Leaf Slam, which is fine, it's okay, but it's, you know, you're not going to be a super fast map clearing, spectral throw type build with this character, but you will just absolutely enjoy it off. For the most part, I can face tank just about anything. going into random chests, just absolutely sitting in the middle of things and just smashing the ground. It's completely satisfying. And then just to kind of give you a brief overview of with Conk Effect in, again, Conk Effect not even being level 20 or having any quality has, you know, this definitely has room for improvement. Again, like I said, Conk Effect is something I only pop in for bosses on the Fury fight. In most circumstances, it's not really worth it. Also, when mapping, you don't use Conk Effect because your damage is so ridiculously high that you will kill yourself to reflect, hands down. With increased AoE, you do like not as much damage, and you have enough life to sustain that reflect that you're going to get hit. But with Conk Effect in, it'll just annihilate you. Because I'm sitting at 165,000 DPS with just my auras and my golem up with Conk Effect in. That's no flash top. If I run, if I get my, let me try to get some charges over here. That might be dead. There we go. Actually, Vaal Ground Slam is actually really good to get charges too because it has an innate knockback chance on it, so it's kind of a nice response to getting power charges. I think we're going to be able to get charges on. I'll hop into the dry lake real quick. Yeah, so Conk Effect, ridiculous DPS.
I have nothing more to give.
Yeah. Get some Piranha coins. Hop out of here. So yeah, you know, pros of this build, it's extremely satisfying to just basically one-shot everything. And you hit really hard, and it just has huge AoE. Because you have weapon elemental damage, most of the time freezing things on my initial hit, so it's a huge defensive boost. It's like things aren't even really hitting me that often because I'm like instantly freezing. And you know, you have lightning damage built into your attacks, so you're shocking them. But enemies most of the time, you don't even need to use Vaal lightning trap for most things, and you're igniting them for a ton of damage, so enemies will just burn down. It's just so satisfying just to see just all the damage you can do with this build. And again, like I said, you know, at level 87, 4.5k life is decent. You can definitely expect into more life. Earlier on, if you want to forego some damage, but I could easily reach 5k life. So with 5 charges up, Conk Effect and Conk Effect in, I do 206,000 damage. Now, if I pop my flask, I'm at 295, and Rallying Cry, I'm at 321. 321,000 DPS on the initial hit. So there you go. The Conk Effect in reflects is an instant pop. Actually, it's a good example to show. Anyhow, so don't run maps with Conk Effect in. So yeah, 321. And again, this can be even boosted even more with better jewels, gear, and leveling up. So anyhow, that's kind of the overview of my Epic build. I hope you guys enjoy it. It was a lot of fun to play. Take care.